No one's stuck so many phallic objects in my face since I was an AIDS educator.
What did you guys do wrong?
They got the big ass seats. That's all they get to look at all night. Kyle, I get the last word tonight for a change. So. First of all, it's really amazing to be here. I'd like to introduce you as well, my family, since that's what we're about. The last year and a half of my life has been rather challenging. It's been even more challenging to be the partner. Every time you go out, you sort of get ignored, and people sort of, you become very invisible. My partner is a surgical nurse, so I drop off at the hospital. He actually does something quite serious and saves lives, and has worked on the front lines of healthcare. And maybe some of you know that's quite serious. So I'd like to introduce my partner, Rick Nevis. It's an incredible view up here, you know, it's like you're quite hot. I've never been in a room with so many gay men with the lights that bright before. I want to tell you a little bit about my city that I'm very proud of, and a little bit about some of the people I represent. And I hope you'll come and visit us. You'll have a gay old time. And I want to tell you a few things you may not know. We have a very active and diverse gay and lesbian community that is multiracial and multicultural. It is people who are black, who are Filipino. We have a huge Aboriginal community of two-spirited people who trace back a gay and lesbian tradition at least 8,000 years in Manitoba. It's a rich and celebratory community that if you ever get a chance to come and visit and be part of, we'd be very honored to host you. I know a lot of people don't think of Winnipeg as actually a funky place to live if you're gay or lesbian. And for generations, because of discrimination that exists in the smaller cities in Canada, and we're, by Western standards, a pretty big one, people eked out a hard life there and faced a lot of discrimination and violence. And have come a long way, I think, because AIDS and the courage of people with HIV and AIDS presented a revolution, because in a smaller city of under 1 million people, everyone knew somebody. And in facing the greatest challenge and the intimacy of the challenge of AIDS and the challenge of intimacy and of closing out your life or trying to turn around the time frames in which you see yourself living, becomes an inspiring transition for a city. And in a city the size of Winnipeg, it reached into everyone's chest and grabbed their heart and held it until people really understood that for all of the diversity and fear that we may have each other, that when it comes to the fundamental caring, important things in life, we all are the same under our skin. And I think that has led to some parallel changes in Manitoba that happened here in Ontario. We had human rights legislation within months, about the same time. As a matter of fact, I think a lot of mutual support between gay and lesbian people and the queer community here and that in Manitoba. It also has resulted in my counterpart, the chairperson of Winnipeg School Division, Laurie Johnson, being the first lesbian to ever be chair of the largest school division of my parallel constituency in Manitoba. The former leader of the gay lesbian youth group, Christine Barr, is also a school trustee in Winnipeg. And that's revolutionary. It really is. And if you know the sensitivities around education and family and all of the fear that the majority community out there has about us, that's a remarkable breakthrough. It's also rather remarkable too, because we've done a lot of work in child and family services. As you know, I foster parented quite a bit and worked with street kids. Was involved in a documentary about that, which Michael and I did, to try and break down some of the fundamental stereotypes that people have about gay and lesbian people around sexuality and around children. And to do that, you had to let people into your living room and into your lives and into the most intimate part of your lives. Which leads me to something that I really want to say, and I think it's most important. People like me stand here because of people like you. It is not the great acts of government though fighting in the courts and getting legislation is important, change starts with ripples. It starts every time two of you stand holding each other's hand of the person you love and walking down the street. It happens in small ways when you stand out in your place of work and stop referring to gay and lesbian people as they and them and start speaking in the terms I and we. It builds into a movement when you march in the street, when you go to a committee meeting, when you show up here tonight. When you sue the bastards, it becomes a tidal wave and you get the kind of change that is long overdue. I think there are some things that we can't forget along the way, and you'll notice that most of us who had elective office here tonight, Jack, Olivia, Kyle, and Marilyn and others, are also bound by a commitment to end homelessness and to ensure that basic rights are real, that we in a country right now that is rated by the United Nations as having the highest standard of living at a point of affluence that those of us who came from immigrant families who lost members of their family in the war and came here with nothing can't imagine, seems to be farther away from providing the basic resources of life, dignity, shelter, education, and health more than any time in its history. And while governments fight over surpluses and can't come up with 1% for housing, and we can't put a roof over every child and every family's head, then we have really lost sight of why we created this country in the first place. Our agenda is a bigger one than the gay agenda. It's a fundamentally human agenda. It's an anti-materialist agenda. It's centering in some sense of decency and respect for each other. And I say that because there's certain things that I think we always have to be aware of. We have to change the legislation in my mind and in my heart, not only so that gay and lesbian people can get basic benefits and retire with their loved ones knowing that when they die, that they won't be able to transmit and transfer the same kind of wealth that they created together as a couple and provide their families in their many forms with a level of security. But if you're an elderly woman taking care of an even older mother, or if you're a single mother with a child, or if your construction of your family is neither heterosexual nor homosexual, the income or social or care plan and benefits that your partner's employer provides you shouldn't be the determining factor in the kind of quality of life you have when you retire. And I think that we have to make sure that we keep broadening our fight, that it's not only gay and lesbian families, but families in their many other forms that can't have a fundraiser like this, that don't have the wealth of resources, that we make sure that we redefine families once and for all. I've been talking longer than I wanted to, but I really find the fact that you're all here incredibly inspiring. I remember people like Doug Wilson, who inspired me early on, who ran for office when he had AIDS and pneumonia and could barely drag himself from door to door, who put more on the line without any help of winning, so that a generation later, many of us who put it all on the line had a chance to win and have. I don't want us to ever forget that we are much more comfortable than we were a generation ago. That whether it was gay men struggling through AIDS, lesbian women struggling for decency and respect, free of sexism and homophobia in the workplace, and the right to retain children that they nurtured and cared for, and friends and family with some dignity. Whether it is because you came from an immigrant family and have watched a generation of your parents and grandparents be the butt of every rude racial joke as they struggle to do all of the things that in the mythology of our culture are so important, like start the small business and bring the character to the neighborhood and make sure we have nice restaurants to eat in. And it's really, really, really an amazing transformation that we've gone through in our lives. When I was a teenager, I met Sven Robinson at the university I went through, and we had a conversation about would either of us ever be in politics, and that wasn't that long ago. Because he had just gotten elected, and he said, I don't think I could ever come out. I'd have to not run again. I don't think they'd ever elect me. And you know, if anyone had said you'd be the mayor of Winnipeg as I was hanging out in bars in Stanley Street in Montreal, I would have said to you, not in this lifetime. Never, ever, ever, ever forget the possibility of change. Never, ever, ever have your life driven by fear. Do not live your life for the people that fear you and hate you. Do not be somebody else to accommodate someone else's prejudice. Try and reach deep down inside yourself for every fiber of your body that has fought hatred in all of its forms, and make that your anvil to create the kind of steel of character and courage to take another step. There's really one person I knew, and it's the only reason that I ever took the risk of putting myself out there to be a candidate for an office like this. There was a fellow named Jim Farley who sat down with me one day. He looked into my eyes as he was dying, and he grabbed me by the face. And as much as I love my job at the post office, he said, if you died right now, they'd put on your gravestone, you work for Canada Post. Being the big queen you are, I can't believe you want that to be your epitaph. And he said, I'm not going to be around a lot longer, but when I'm going, I'm coming back to haunt you. And I want to extract a commitment from you. What do you want to do with your life, really? And I said, well, I'd like to be a city councillor, I'd like to be a parent, I want to see an AIDS project established in the city, I want to see a gay pride day, I want to see our human rights legislation changed in Manitoba, and I want it all to happen now. And he said, well, why aren't you doing that? Well, I don't make enough money, and I haven't paid off the mortgage, and you know, they're not going to elect anyone who's gay, and where would we get the money? And people in Winnipeg won't come out to a pride day if their life depended on it. As a matter of fact, the first one we had to have brown paper bags, I'm not kidding. So people, which tells you how far we've come, because really they would have lost their jobs if they didn't see anything. And in 5 years of Jim dying, that bond that I did each and every one of those things. And I realized that you have two choices in life. You take the risks, you fly and you fall, and you live. And even if you fall, you still won, because you got a lot farther than you would have been if you stayed in bed. And you're going to have a lot more fun, and who knows who you're going to meet along the way. But you can all do it. And each and every one of you has a special gift. Each and every one of you has suffered a certain pain. Each and every one of you has loved and lived a certain life. And the rich mosaic and courage that you express when you get involved and elevate citizenship to something more than a piece of paper and make it an active commitment changes this world to be something that you can't help but get excited about. Whether you put on a dress and lots of makeup, my stage name was Roadkill, by the way, and go out and party girl and that's how you make your difference and your change. Where you run for elected office, whether you're a lawyer, whether you're spending your evenings with kids with broken lives trying to put pieces of people's lives back together, where you go home and hug someone bravely and boldly every night, you're making a difference in your life and someone else. Please never live in the shadow of fear, and always dance in the ray of sunshine and hope. And we are going to win this, and when we win this for us, let's keep fighting until everybody else stands with us. Thank you.